Stephen Covey talks about this in Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And what he talks about is that when you're listening to someone, you've got to be so careful not to listen to reply, because so many people do that. I think one of the biggest challenges leaders are facing is the pressure to produce results. And it's been my direct experience, a lot of leaders lose sight of the fact that they are working with human beings. I like to make to people, use the PRD method. Before you say something you're going to regret, pause, reflect, decide what to do. Others have shared that it's worked for them.
Whether you're running a business or working in the corporate world, there's going to come a time when leading people becomes part of the job. And as exciting as it can be to lead a team and watch them grow as individuals and the organization, it can also come to those not so great moments, when there's disharmony within the group. That's when our leadership skills really come into play. Sometimes it works out, other times those skills even make things worse. Well, today my guest is an expert at helping leaders build their skill set so their teams can thrive. Now, before we get into all of that today, I just want to remind you, if you're interested in raising your standards as a father, husband, and entrepreneur, I'm going to encourage you to participate and start your hero's quest. In this program, you're going to accomplish more, learn more, and develop and become more in the next 90 days than you ever have in your life. And to see if you really qualify for this, I want you to go to the Awakened Man Training Academy at members.theawakenedman.net and then become a hero of your story. Now, with that, let's get on with today's episode.
The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
Welcome, everyone, to the Revolutionary Man podcast. I'm the founder of the Awakened Man movement and your host, Alan DeMonso. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your leadership abilities? Would your employees and staff give you the same score? I can remember years ago taking an emotional intelligence training course, and part of the training was they offered a 360-degree assessment. I have to tell you, it was the most humbling experience that I've ever had to go through at that point in my life. What I realized is a skill set that I thought I had, while good in some areas, were also sorely lacking in others. It gave me an opportunity, though, to recognize what needed to be worked on. And oh boy, I can tell you, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my career. Now, not everyone's going to get that chance to go through this kind of training. So instead, my guest is going to share his leadership nuggets to help us become the best leaders that we can be. So allow me to introduce my guest. Ron Reich is a passionate leadership management development subject matter expert and a coach with over 28 years of experience in diversified industries. As an expert facilitator, Ron believes in involving participants in their learning, leading to higher engagement and quality results. He's also a voracious reader, as we were just talking about this, and he stays current with the latest research and philosophies, which helps him as he loves sharing this with his clients. Now, everything he's done is built up to his latest book. I'll have to edit that out. Sorry. Welcome to the show, Ron. How are things?
Thanks, Elaine. It's good to be here. Everything is fine. I appreciate it. And you know what? Right there is a very, very key trait for a leader, is just, hey, you know what? Oops, just made a mistake. Oh, well. And I'm dead serious when I say that. I am dead serious, where it makes the leader, it makes us human.
Yeah.
And to admit a mistake like that and say, oh, okay, instead of, gee, I'm embarrassed, or whatever it might be. I was so impressed, and I was fortunate enough and honored to be keynote speaker at a national sales meeting for a client in Phoenix, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. one of the top executives from Japan was up doing his presentation, and he was having trouble with his slides. And instead of being embarrassed, and instead of just, fumbling or whatever it was, he spoke pretty good English.
Yeah.
He just turned, Janet, I'm having trouble with this. I don't know what to do. Would you please help me? And I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
wow. And I mean, just right off the bat, one of the key traits, it's okay to make mistakes and admit it, apologize, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I it took me a while to learn that lesson as well. And so even as a new podcaster, wanting to make sure everything was coming out just perfect. But after a while, it's okay to be human, right? We just have to admit that we're human and things are going to happen once in a while. And,
That's
and I
right.
appreciate I appreciate bringing that forward. Well, Ron, in my men's work, we talk a lot about everyone being on our hero's quest. I was mentioning in the intro here. And so tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to pursue the life that you're living today and how that experience has shaped you into the man you are and the work that you're doing.
It's Elaine and Alan, I'm sorry. It's an interesting story because in reading about your podcast and helping men to find themselves and to be the best they can be and just everything that goes along with that. I began my career many years ago in human resources. And while I enjoyed it for the first 10 years, it wasn't something about which I was absolutely passionate. Long story short, I had worked at a bank for a number of years. They were consolidating enormously at the time and just everything that goes along with that. A number of us opened up an HR consulting firm. We decided to shut the doors for a number of different reasons. And at the time, I was going through a divorce. Okay. I was at a very, very low point in my life, not feeling good about myself, not feeling good about my career, anything like that. And I was living with my mom and dad. Out of the blue, I got a telephone call from a recruiter in Dallas, Texas, who said to me, Ron, I've got a job that is the exact opposite of what you are. It's with Toshiba. They are looking for somebody who has a lot of training and some human resources background. You have a lot of HR and some training. I can get you in front of them. I know these people extremely well. All you need to do, easy assignment, get them to flip their competencies. I had always, Alan, always had in the back of my mind, God, I would love to get into training and development. I talked to the people at Toshiba. They flipped their competencies. They were good enough. They were, and again, another good trait of a leader in that seeing something that I didn't see in myself. And it's like, you know what? We're going to teach, we're going to help this guy become a good facilitator. We're going to help this guy become a good facilitator. I have not looked back since. And it is my calling, and it is something about which I am so passionate, and I am forever, forever grateful to so many different people for what they've done for me over the years.
Oh man, and what I really appreciate you about you telling that story is just about the point about having others recognize what's in us that we may not see in ourselves just yet. And I think you're absolutely right. As leaders, that's one of the key traits for us to have, is to recognize those key parts of the people we surround ourselves with, whether that's our staff or employees, and how we can help pull that out from them. And it's not just, we're talking about leadership traits, and we're not just talking here about moving down the organization, right? These kind of traits also work across and up. And I'm hoping we're going to get a touch into all of those things today, because I think it's so important as men, as we get into leadership roles in our careers, that we understand that there's a whole sphere of leadership, and it isn't just about our direct reports and our subordinates, but it's also about how we manage up.
Yeah. Well, and Alan, for me too, I'm interested in this because I believe in it so strongly as well, is that there's so much crossover between, the leadership in our work and also being a good husband, being a good father, just being a good friend. whatever it might be. I mean, I'm not a parent. My wife and I don't have children, and still in all, just there, the leadership traits are applicable everywhere.
Yes.
So a lot of times, like, oh, I went to leadership development for work. It's like, yeah, except I hope it's applicable everywhere. In fact, one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten was quite a few years ago. I did a 2-day leadership class for Sanofi Aventis, the big pharmaceutical. We had finished, and everybody's, mingling and saying goodbye and everything else. A guy comes up to me, Ron, thank you so much. 2 days of great training. And I was like, oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to do it. And he leaned into me and said quietly, it was 2 days of something else too. I had a thought about where he was going with it. And I was like, what else was it? And he looked around to make sure nobody could really overhear. And he said to me, he goes, it was 2 days of wonderful marriage counseling. And again, Alan, the point for me is it's applicable.
Absolutely.
How to listen, how to give feedback, setting expectations, giving the recognition to people. Stephen Covey says, I'm a big believer in the 7 habits, and I'm fortunate enough to be certified to teach that class. And when Stephen was alive, he used to say all the time, the greatest gift a spouse can give his or her children is to treat their spouse with enormous respect.
Mm.
And I believe that, and again, with the crossover being, whether it's at home or whether it's at work, the greatest gift I can give people is to treat them with enormous respect.
Absolutely, for sure. And that's one of the things that we also work on here with the Awakened Man is we talk a lot about not just being on a hero's quest and a hero's journey, but really also diving into the nuts and bolts about that. And so one of the things that we practice in our men's group is to practice the ability to how to share. And it's more, and sharing is more than just giving your own opinion, but it's also about being able to create a container we call, or a space, and that you can accept other things to come into it. Because as men, we tend to want to be fixers. We're always thinking about what we're going to say, and we're not necessarily paying attention to the conversation that's happening. And when we can take that moment just to sit back and just absorb what's being said, and then contemplate about how that fits into our life experience, we can be more present. And it's one of the skills that I think is so important as husbands and as fathers, that we can help develop that skill, and, obviously, and friends as well. Because when we can come from that point, man, the level of intimacy really grows. And also the respect that you gain from your peers, your spouses, your friends, just grows enormously, because they can see that you're truly interested in wondering what they're saying.
Exactly. And I mean, and again, I'm going to pick up on that a little bit, if I may.
Absolutely.
Because again, Stephen Covey talks about this in habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yeah.
And what he talks about is that when you're listening to someone, you've got to be so careful not to listen to reply, because so many people do that. And I used to do that all the time. Say, how am I going to respond to this? How am I going to refute that? Or, oh, I have a story to tell about that. Okay, and I'm not present in the moment, like you were saying. I'm thinking about me instead of listening to the other person. And Stephen's point is too, that number one, you want to translate what you heard the person say.
Yes.
And again, just as an example, you're making me think of this. A friend of mine, Bob, his son got really sick out at Syracuse University, and they just weren't sure what was wrong with him. He had an infection in his leg that they couldn't get rid of, and just a lot of other stuff. And I was talking to him one day, And he was going on. He goes, oh, and he goes, I don't know what's going to happen to him. And I'm so worried. And I feel like I should be up there all the time, except my ex-wife is up there. And I was like, Bob, it sounds like, and I'm translating, it sounds like you're really, really worried about Bobby. And you're just not sure how to proceed at this point. And Alan, as I sit here, he looked at me like, whoa, whoa, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And the point is, he kept sharing. He kept sharing because when you're listening, the intimacy is there, like you're saying, for me. A synonym for that, if you will, is also trust.
Yes.
The trust is there, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep telling this guy more.
Yeah, absolutely. And because they know that you're actually invested and care about what they want, what they have to say.
Exactly.
I think we're starting to touch on, some of the challenges that the leaders face, but in your work, what are you finding are some of the bigger challenges that leaders are facing today?
I think one of the biggest challenges leaders are facing is the pressure to produce results. And it's been my direct experience, a lot of leaders lose sight of the fact that they are working with human beings. And interestingly, yeah, you had mentioned to me right before we started, Alan, Ron, let's talk about the key traits of leaders. And in the leadership classes that I do, I always like to start off with the introduction's fine, icebreaker, whatever. The first real activity, though, break them into small groups and just brainstorm onto a flip chart. What is your role as a leader? What's your role? And as we do the debrief, it's always so much fun because I just have to ask them how much technical information is on your flip charts. And they look, and it's just fun. It's like next to none. Yes. And I was like, what does that tell you? What's your role? And usually they will say it out loud. Wow, my role is to be human. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Your role is to be human, to listen, to guide, not to motivate necessarily, because I believe that's intrinsic still, to provide a motivational environment and just everything that goes along with that. And the point I make is, are results important? Of course they are. They're crucial, except they come from being human. They come from creating good relationships. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my mantras, Alan, truly is stay. And again, I like to speak for myself. I like to stay out of the results business. The results are not up to me. My job, do the footwork. The results will take care of themselves. And the results are going to be what they're supposed to be. Right before we started, and I do this every single time. I'm going to do a session before I did the keynote address that I delivered. I just say to myself, I am well prepared. I'm ready to go. It is in God. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. However this goes, it goes. I have done everything I can to be ready.
Yeah.
What more can I ask of myself? And then I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and really what you're saying is about really staying present, and it's about the journey, not about the destination.
Exactly.
And the quarterly result, the annual result, whatever the result's going to be, is going to be what it's going to be. But if we focus on today, what can I do today? What's the one thing that's going to move this process or this whatever project I'm working on forward? And if we stay present, then the results ultimately will take care of themselves. And so I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Now you must work with in your practice and doing working with other companies. There's obviously lots of different personality types, and we probably most of us have listening to this podcast have at one point or another done a Myers-Briggs or some type of personality. But how do people deal with others when they have a different personality type than themselves?
I am a big believer in the DISC instrument, in the DISC assessment. And interestingly, that was the focus of the keynote address that I did. I took them through the DISC, and we spent 3.5 hours together going through that. And I think, it's so critical, in my opinion, just simply because we are all different. We all bring different things to the table. And, I'll back up for a second, because I'm going to bring my wife into this for a moment. My wife taught for 30 years. She taught fifth grade for the majority of that time. One of the lessons she used to teach every single year, which I thought was just beyond brilliant, was titled, "It is not how smart are you, it is how are you smart."
Mm.
And I believe that so strongly, because every single person is smart. I'm smart in certain areas. I have certain strengths and I have certain limitations. We're all smart. And the DISC instrument, or any assessment, my preference is the DISC, points that out so clearly. And it helps people to understand, oh, okay, you're not a jerk. You're just more task oriented than people oriented. Or you're not a loudmouth. You're not just a conceited jerk. You're somebody who just likes to be around people and likes to talk. Okay. Just all of these things applicable in the workplace, applicable at home too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when we understand some of the key traits of our peers, our family, our friends, we can approach them in a different perspective. And I think I'm a big fan of the personality tests and that. And I've done DISC and a couple other ones. And I am always impressed when, as I do them, I start to really get a better understanding of not just who I am at my core, like especially when it comes down to some of these assessments, you can really get a sense of, what traits you lean on under stress, what traits you lean on when you're in a non-stress environment. And when you can start to pick up those nuances, it's really starting to, getting into some of that emotional intelligence piece I was talking about earlier, because I think it's really key, because then you can really hone in on really sharpening that leadership skill.
That's right. Well, and for me, and again, I speak for myself, if there's one thing anybody can do, whether it's a leader, whether it's, again, a husband, a father, a friend, whatever, you want to be the best you can be. Again, my opinion, one of the most important things to do, get to know yourself extraordinarily well. Because the better I know myself, the better then I can work more effectively with other people.
Absolutely.
And it comes from, like you said, the DISC assessment, listening carefully, getting feedback from other people. How do you perceive me? This is how I am. Doesn't matter how I think I am. It's more important how I'm being perceived.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mentioned in the opening there's going to be times when, things are going really well in our work environment or careers, whether that's as a business owner or in the corporate world. And then there are going to be times when it's not going as well. So what advice do you have for those moments in time that when our staff seem to be disengaged, and how do we re-energize them and get them re-engaged in their roles?
Couple things. Number one, I think a little bit about what we've been talking about throughout, Alan, in that it's so important to get to know each other personally, professionally, every which way. So that way, if something is off, I'm going to see it, I'm going to recognize it, and I can ask you about it in a caring way. And it goes back to a little bit about what we were saying too with translating. Just, relative to, Alan, you know what? You seemed a little off the past couple of days. You've been quiet. What's going on? Not, and again, not, Alan, you've been quiet. What's wrong? You're not getting this done, and you missed this quota, whatever it might be. It's like, no, let me approach you because I care about you. And one thing for me, And this is where I just learned this not long ago. I've used it a number of times and it has been so successful. I'm a big believer in Simon Sinek's work. I don't know if you know Simon or
Yeah.
not. Yeah. The one thing, if I need to have a difficult conversation with someone, the where I always seem to struggle is getting started.
Mm.
And his recommendation is just so simple. Alan, I'm struggling with the fact that you've been coming late to meetings. Be honest with me. How do you see it? Done. Just,
Yeah.
I'm struggling with fill in the blank. And I was like, wow. We've had, just to give you an example, we've had a major house renovation going on, and we are approaching the absolute end now. In fact, the contractor said he hopes to be out of here completely next week, which would be wonderful. Point is, it's gone well. And full disclosure, the contractor is my wife's cousin. We hesitated to work with family. And interestingly, though, actually, let's talk about another trait for leaders, or again for family members, whatever it might be, setting expectations. When we decided, yes, we will work together on this project, one of the expectations we had was, number one, we're going to be honest with each other.
Yeah.
And when we are having these difficult conversations, which are going to be inevitable, it is a conversation between a client and the contractor. It's not a family conversation. And it worked out so well.
Nice.
Where we were struggling the one time, and ironically, actually, it ties into expectations. Bill, the general contractor, was sitting down with us when things were really going on. And every Monday we would sit down. This is the plan for the week. This is what we're going to accomplish. This is what will happen. Wonderful. The problem was that only about maybe 60% was getting done.
Mm.
And things were falling behind. We were getting frustrated. My wife says we need to talk to him. I agree. I want to let me try this, because I had just started to become aware of this. I was in Boston at the time with a client. We had a conference call with Bill, and it's like, Bill, we're struggling with the fact that you're giving us this plan on Monday, which is wonderful, except it's not getting executed, and just so forth. And the key here too, Alan, is the research on this, as I understand it. You want to get the best answer from the individual with whom you're dealing. The best, I'm sorry, I need to back up for a second. I'm struggling with the fact that, again, only 60% is getting done.
Yeah.
Be honest with us. How do you see it? And we talked for about an hour and a half.
Mm.
And the key word I just used, talked.
Yeah.
We talked. There was no arguing. There was nothing. And again, Bill being the good leader that he is, and I've gotten to know him much better throughout this project. And again, candidly, I've gained a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Because the first thing he said to us was, I'm going to take a big part of the hit here. A lot of this is my fault, not all of it. And I want to talk to you about that. And just instantly it's like, okay, great. No tension, no nothing. Let's talk it through.
Right on.
Let's just talk it through. And that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works. It just works.
Yeah, it goes back to that creating that container, that space to allow more to come into it. Is having it approached it from an attacking perspective, there'd be no room for that to grow, right? Because right away both parties start to feel defensive, and so I think it's such a great example of what you're saying, and I think it's so easy for us to implement that across all areas of our life, right? And to start doing that, it gives us an opportunity really to be present and be in a place of, and in a place where the tension for us is lower, is less. And that may be part of the, the pre-work we need to do, is really understanding and getting ready, as you were talking about, like getting into a place that you can start that conversation that way, and not have so much of that strong energy. At least I'm I'm saying this because I'm talking to myself about how, how I approach things. Like, okay, I'll just take a breath. You know, if I need to take 24 hours, take 24 hours, and then come at it at a position from calmness versus all of this vibration and energy and trying to push through.
I'm gonna jump in again if I may here, because for me, Alan, you brought up another very, very key point relative to emotional intelligence, and that the one of the second competency of emotional intelligence, as I understand it, is called self-regulation.
Mhm.
And because we are emotional human beings, we react emotionally to certain situations. And rather than having an emotional, defensive, angry conversation with someone, the recommendation I like to make to people, use the PRD method. Before you say something you're going to regret, pause, reflect,
Mhm.
decide what to do. And if it's possible, in many situations, for me at least, it's been my direct experience, and others have shared that it's worked for them. One of the best things you can do is postpone that conversation.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this in an hour? Can we talk about this in the morning?
Mhm.
And again, this is applicable in the workplace. It's applicable in personal lives. When my mother-in-law was so ill, uh, we knew she wasn't going to live much longer. She had about a week to go, and she was living here. We had she we my wife and I had lived with her our entire marriage. It gets to be a long story, and I'll make it short. Point is that she had been in a rehab facility, and she told us, "I want to die at home." Okay, all right, we will try as best we can. We will try to do that for you. We brought her home, and it became clear. Actually, no, let me back up for a minute. She was home with us for a couple of days. I had had a very, very long day in Manhattan. Okay, I had worked, came home. Lori and I are having dinner, and we were talking about, can we keep her home, or do we think she needs to go to the nursing home where we had already made arrangements were it necessary? And Lori was very emotional, and she
Sure.
was like, "I know what you want. You just want to get rid of her. You just want to stick her in the nursing home." And I had a very good relationship with my mother-in-law. We got along very, very well. My point simply is, pause, Ron, reflect.
Oh,
Lori, it's been a really long day. I'm very tired. I know how emotional you are. It's very tough for all of us right here. I think
yeah.
the best thing to do is, let's talk about this in the morning. I need to go back to the city tomorrow. We'll talk in the morning though. And ironically, and again, you were talking, Alan, about allowing the space.
Yeah.
I got to Manhattan. I called her and I was like, first of all, how did you sleep? She said, I barely slept. And I said, I know. I said, me too. I just tossed and turned all night. And I was like, Lori, I think I'm changing my mind. I think maybe we can keep her at home. Maybe we can pull this off. And she laughed and she was like, I cannot believe you're saying this because I'm changing my mind. I think we need to put her in the nursing home.
Ah,
And again, it worked out fine.
yeah.
And again, point simply is though, it wasn't the time to talk about it when we were both emotional. Just not smart. Just not smart.
Yeah, exactly. Because he allowed the time for perspective to settle in and give an opportunity to see different potential outcomes and how it could work. And I think it's so key in all of our relationships for us to do that. Now, the other thing as leaders, we're always in the mode of making decisions. So, what is your recommendation to help leaders make consistent decisions and to keep their organizations moving forward?
I'm going to, I think the most important thing from my perspective, Alan, is that any organization, large or small, needs a vision statement,
Mm.
needs a good, solid vision statement. And for me, and this is what I tell people, this is what I actually ask people all the time. when you have a major decision to make for your organization, how do you make it? How do you make it? On what do you base your decision? Well, the facts. Well, okay, that's fine, except what do the facts need to be pointing to? And again, the point for me is any organization that has and uses, and that's the key, uses a good vision statement, that's how you will make consistent decisions. I have my vision and my mission statement right here for my business. And I have it right where I can see it every single day. And that helps me to make consistent decisions. It helps me to make consistent decisions. Ironically, I mean, there's a guy I know, David. David used to run a for-profit assisted living facility. And I was talking to him one day, and he was just talking. He said, "Oh, we're struggling, and I don't know what's going on, and my marketing programs aren't going well, and there was some other stuff going on." And I just asked him, "I was like, David, does your organization have a vision statement or a mission?" "No." And I was like, "Okay, do you find yourself making inconsistent decisions?" "All the time." And I was like, "Well, what do you base your decisions on?" "Revenue at the time." And I almost choked. And I was like, "Yeah," I said, "that's the reason you're making inconsistent decisions." And again, the question to ask, what is our vision? What is our mission? And then based on the problem at hand, what is best for this organization?
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and again, I want to go back because it's interesting too. One of my clients is a local community college. And I've been working with their executive committee. And that is one of the things where they have been struggling because they're focusing too much on their functional areas instead of as executives of this institution. And one of the things I really like, I'm also a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's work.
I was just thinking about him. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his work and the book The Advantage. And the one thing that he talks about in The Advantage, he just says as no, he said when we come into this meeting as as individuals and as an executive committee, he said each one of you need to take your functional hats off, throw them out the window. Throw them out the window. You are no longer the executive vice president of finance. You are no longer the VP of HR. And again, whoever else is in the room, you are now executives of this institution. And that's how I need you thinking while we make this decision. Once we've made the decision, then we need you to put your hat back on because that's how we're going to execute the decision we just made.
Yeah, absolutely. What I really appreciate you about what you were saying there, Ron, is that you talk about the vision and mission statement. And one of the very first things I do with men that join our organization here is to take them through a process, and it's an internal journey. But ultimately, at the end, what they end up by doing is crafting a personal vision statement for their life,
Right.
and not just about what their career is, but we touch on 6 aspects. So it's financial, emotional, physical, spiritual, professional, and our relationships. And when they craft this piece, it gives them a foundation for how they want to move their life forward. And I'm a big fan of Covey's work as well, and it's kind of where the catalyst of the idea for this, because it's something that I've always found that when I'm out of alignment or misalignment in my life or things, and what I mean by that, when different aspects of my life aren't following the way that I'm wanting it to, then I always look at, well, what are the decisions I'm making? What have I been doing? And when I can go back and look at a vision statement that I've made for myself, it's pretty clear that where I've been dropping the ball in showing up. And so I think it's so key for not just for business, but for ourselves as individuals as well, to have something that we can look at. And mine is right above my monitor, my camera. I look at it every day that I sit in the office here to do podcasting or do work for the Awakened Man, because I think it's so important for for us to really develop that and give us that true North Star in our lives?
I did Covey's What Matters Most class. It doesn't exist anymore still. Many years ago, working for a pharmaceutical company, part of the course, put together your mission statement. Okay, fine. So we go through it. The course is over. This woman, Heidi, comes up to me after, can I talk to you for a minute? And I could tell she was upset. And I was like, sure, what is it, Heidi? She said, thank you so much for the course. You have changed my life. I was like, okay, good. How so? She said, I'm going to resign. And I was like, okay, what's going on? She said, the mission statement is helping me to see I'm not being a good wife. I'm not being a good mother. This job is consuming me. It's not good for anybody, and I need to leave. And I was like, Heidi, how wonderful. How wonderful that you that in one day you discovered this. I couldn't be happier for her.
No kidding. What a great realization. And for all of us to be able to find that one piece, that part that helps us recognize where are we on the right path when it comes to our careers and our relationships and in all aspects. And I think that's just so important.
Well, and you know what, the other thing that's so interesting here, at least for me too, Alan, is that was Heidi.
Yeah.
Just Heidi. That's all. Because we're all different.
Yep.
She wanted to be there for her children. She wanted to be there for her husband. And I'm not saying, other people don't want to do that, except the point is we all have different priorities, and
Yes.
that's okay. The key is each of us needs to discover for ourselves what's most important.
Absolutely. And when we know what that is, then we can start to realign our lives to make sure that we're doing things in the right sequence, that we have that focus. Now, that doesn't mean that just because something may be important. And I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career, because I was extremely career oriented. And while I was really successful in my professional career, my personal life just fell apart. And I think it's important that we orient ourselves and understand what's important, but we have then that conversation with the people that are closest to us, so they understand what we're trying to accomplish in our day-to-day lives. Because then you get the support, and people get an opportunity to have their 2 cents into it. Not that necessarily is going to change anything, but it gives you, again, a greater amount of perspective, because ultimately we're all on this planet trying to do the best that we can in each and every day. I truly believe that we're just looking to live to the highest version of ourselves in each moment.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. When you're doing all this work now, and you're doing lots of, you do obviously have a few clients in that. When you think about 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, and you decided you're going to hang up the facilitation hat, what would the legacy that you'd like to leave behind?
I think there are two. Number one, the one legacy I'd like to leave is that he cared. And number two, he made a difference.
Nice.
And I think they go hand in hand for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that just in this time that we were spending together. I can see that totally being for you. And I'm assured that it's already happening. Ron, of everything that we spoke about today, and maybe there was something we didn't get an opportunity to touch on, if there was one takeaway you'd like our listeners to have, what would that be?
I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to two quick things that we did talk about. Number one, be human. And number two, equally as important, get to know yourself. Just get to know yourself really, really well. And again, the more I say that to people, the more I believe it, because it is just so true.
It sure is. And what a great way to round out our conversation today. I just want to say once again, thanks, Ron, for spending time with me today. And I think we've laid some groundwork, a few breadcrumbs for us to help improve our leadership skills. But you know what, if we wanted to get a little bit more information and get some men that wanted to participate in some of the work that you're doing, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
There are two ways to do it, Alan. Probably the easiest way, actually they're both pretty easy, is through my LinkedIn page. It's just, Ron Reich, Reich, RLB Training and Development. You go there, and if anyone is interested, actually, one thing too, Alan, is that I do have I have a list of about, I think, 15 questions. I call them thought-provoking questions for people to answer to really help them to get to know themselves.
Love it.
Message me, and I will gladly send it to you, and I'll be glad to spend the time to go through with it, to go through it with any listeners who are interested. So LinkedIn, and also people can reach me on my Instagram page, just very simply, RLB_leadership.
That's outstanding. I'm going to make sure that information's all in the show notes so people have opportunity to reach out to spend some time with you, Ron. So thank you once again for being on the show. It was outstanding conversation.
Alan, it was my pleasure. I appreciate your time. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.